Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition here of Show Blitz here of the Man of Steel podcast. I am, of course, yours truly, your host, Charles Prodigy Richie, right now, as we are getting set right now. The final week of the 2022 regular season. It is week 18. And before we go any further, continued thoughts and prayers for Damar Hamlin, who earlier this past Monday was trending and was seen on the national stage on Monday Night Football. Passed out during the field after making a tackle, had a cardiac arrest, and so far he seems like he's making good progress so far. He's been in intensive care in Cincinnati for the past week, and it's just a horrific, tragic event to see happen. Anybody watching that game, be honest with you, and to see what happened to this man. It just continues sad reminder how this game continues to get uh, real brutal as this game continues to be played. But nonetheless, we're pulling, praying, first of all, for this young man that he continues to have a speedy, safe, pain-free recovery, be home with him and his family. We're just recently told that he actually FaceTimed into their team meeting, talked to players and coaches. What he said to the team, love you boys. And also, too, the Bills, they are playing to honor Damar Hamlin, the medical staff during Sunday's game versus the Patriots. The pay safeties, salary, and flow. So a very wonderful way to honor this young man and the medical staff. I mean, clearly it was bigger than just a game. I mean, when you see stuff like this go down. So Damar and to the Bills organization, more importantly, your family, loved ones, friends, teammates, and all players continue to be involved. Just want to let you know we're all pulling for you, my man. So please continue to get well, and hopefully you'll find some peace yourself later down the road. As we continue to get on right now, the Pittsburgh Steelers right now, it has been a awkward of seasons this year, to say the least. I mean, this is a team right now who should have been not in the playoff picture. The season should probably been over a long time ago. They've been hanging around right now. They're looking right now. I mean, at this point in time for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I mean, to start off this season right now, to be the second 2-6 team this year, as mentioned by Brooke Pryor. The Jacksonville Jaguars were the other one. Can the Pittsburgh Steelers be that second team this year to make the playoffs after starting 2-6? Jacksonville Jaguars, after starting 2-6, they clinched their playoff berth by winning the AFC South. That was played yesterday on ESPN on Saturday night's coverage. So the Jaguars win the division and thus eliminate the Tennessee Titans, getting into the playoffs. That ends a 3-year run by the Tennessee Titans. Congratulations to Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars, number one overall pick of the 2021 NFL Draft. He was definitely not really given a fair, reasonable shot in his first year. I mean, he was, but as everybody remembers too, there was a lot of bad karma and distractions going on when they had Urban Meyer as the head coach, who was not fully all in with that team. So congratulations to the Jacksonville Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence, and of course Doug Pearson, former Philadelphia Eagles coach, who actually took this job this year. And as you remember, the Jacksonville Jaguars, they did not finish with their coach. They had interim to finish out the season. So the Pittsburgh Steelers right now, I mean, can you believe it right here? How did we get to this point? And the thing is, too, you also got to remember, too, the Steelers are looking to see if they can probably get another miraculous playoff berth successfully under their belt. We shall see. I mean, the thing right now, how Mike Tomlin continues to manage keeping this team right now. And for those people who, like myself, are still looking at, where they would fall into the draft, if the season were to end today, let's just say they were in the playoff picture. Right now, according to Take Five, they are the 15th overall pick in the first round. Of course, that could change if they were to lose today, the Cleveland Browns have a chance to do something special against the Steelers they have not done in a long time, which is sweep the Steelers. And that has definitely been forever. I mean, for this great rivalry. And when you look at like the Browns right there, who the Steelers have been able like dominate for such a long time. I mean, the Steelers right now are ahead in the all-time series during the regular season, 77-61-1, and two more wins to that, which makes it 69-62-1, which includes the playoffs, where they are 2-1 against them in that category. But I mean, yeah, it's been a long time. I mean, Cleveland Browns has been going for a lot of heartaches, frustration. You also remember too, Deshaun Watson, who had to start off the season on an 11-game suspension and was fined $5 million for violating the personal conduct policy for all the settlement with the women he was involved with back when he was with the Houston Texans. And he still very controversial in many people's eyes, but I mean, he is here right now. He has been the Browns quarterback. He has come back. Jacoby Brissett, who I thought did a phenomenal job for the Cleveland Browns. I mean, to say the least. I mean, the Cleveland Browns right now, many people want to hear this, but they have a first time to sweep the Steelers since 1988. Would have been the last time, November 20th, 1988. And even in that last win that they had, where they swept the Steelers, they had as high during that span a 7-game winning streak in there. And that, of course, was with Chuck Knowles uh, out of his run right there, where he was worn out, and they pretty much had to replace pretty much the old steel curtain defense. Now that pretty much expired pretty much around officially after 1984 when Jack Lambert retired when he had the turf toe injury at the end of his career. But to say the least, though, too, I mean, going back to Jacoby Brissett, who I thought, like I said, I'm going to say this again, he really did an excellent fill-in job. I mean, for this Cleveland Browns team. I mean, to keep them just within reason. If you look at like what he's been able to do this year, he had 4-7 record. I mean, it's a losing record, but not too far off. Threw for 2,608 yards passing with 12 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, about 174 yards a game with an 89 QB rating right there. So he took care of the ball. And not only that, though, too, I mean, a guy like Jacoby Brissett, I mean, he was still able to rush, too, for 243 yards. This guy right here, I mean, he has been a serviceable backup throughout his career, and he proved he could be an interim starter, I mean, for a brief period of time. I mean, like it or not. And you gotta admit right there, I mean, for the Browns to be in this position, they have nothing to play for except be spoiler makers right now. And as I just mentioned right now in the draft, if things were to end up shaking out today, the Cleveland Browns, they got no first round picks this season going into the draft. They've got they've given that up to the Houston Texans. Remember, that was part of the deal to get Deshaun Watson, so they will be without a first round pick. But again, you look at everything that they've been through, like as a franchise this year. I mean, and I tell you what, Deshaun Watson, like the guy or not, I'm not going to get into that other element right there. I mean, what he did was wrong, but as a football player, as a quarterback, he is still the real deal right here. No denying that. I mean, career-wise, he has a touchdown interception ratio of 109 touchdowns, 39 interceptions, which is nothing to blow off, if you ask me. I mean, the Browns, I've always said for the last few years to many people I've interacted with, it's not like they're not trying to win. I don't think that's the case. I think the problem is sometimes what it is too. You could have all the great talent in the world, but not have the proper character. I think character and team chemistry, especially in an NFL locker room, continues to be significant as it is today. And that's why. So, I mean, they've been making some moves. I mean, you think about some of the past moves too, even like when they had Odell Beckham Jr. To pair up. I mean, with the former Cleveland Browns quarterback Baker Mayfield. I mean, who is now with the Los Angeles Rams. I mean, you still got a very significant team right here if you're the Browns. I mean, you cannot be thinking that everything, like this is going to be a hold down the fort. Steelers will win this game. I would like to think so. I think momentum is definitely trending towards the Steelers' favor. I will definitely say that. But I mean, at the same time, we have seen crazier things happen. And as we get into it, let's take a look at the injury report going to this game. Two guys that they are questionable. This is really going to be a high concern right now. You got free safety Micah Fitzpatrick, who is dealing with an ankle injury. He did not practice on Wednesday and Thursday, but he was limited on Friday. So I'm guessing this is going to be a game time decision, I would imagine. I did not get a chance to check out the stats, so please excuse me. And then you got Miles Jack right now, inside linebacker, dealing with a groin injury. He was the Steelers' leading tackler pretty much throughout the season. He is questionable right now. Like I said, with a groin. Same situation as Mika, where he was limited on Friday to not practice throughout the week. I mean, I tell you what, he has been a welcome signing for the Pittsburgh Steelers, if you ask me, for this year. I mean, he is their leading tackler right now with 100 total tackles for the season, where he's got 59 solo. He's got 3 tackles for loss. And speaking of inside linebackers right now, too, what would be a time right now for a guy like Devin Bush to really, kind of squash the noise and concern what he's had to go for the last few years? I mean, talk about a guy like Devin Bush, I mean, who went through hell and back pretty much and had a last days goal all season last year, 2021. I mean, where his production has gone down big time. And when you looked at it, I mean, he was placed on injury reserve from a torn ACL back in 2020, the first year of COVID. Devin Bush, who's looking to try and so the Steelers, he could be worth something. Now remember, they did not pick up his fifth year option be with the Steelers. But I mean, at the same time, too, he is still here right now. He's in the final year of his rookie deal. Be interesting if the Steelers would be able to re-sign him. I mean, this is a guy who's still right now, who after starting off his rookie season, 109 total tackles. I mean, that year, he had a forced fumble, 9 tackles for loss. He's definitely sold out quite a bit. He's got 81 right now on the season. And when you look at, I mean, from the Steelers' perspective, defensively, that's ranks third on the team, which is behind Micah Fitzpatrick. So he is the second leading linebacker on the Steelers to be leading tackles right now. Is Miles Jack with that honor? So we'll see what happens. So, and then you flip things over to and then also too, they will be without free safety Trey Norwood. He was pretty much did not practice on Wednesday and Friday. He was limited on Thursday. He is out today. But I mean, other than that, let's go take a look at the Cleveland Browns right now. Cleveland Browns, some noticeable guys they'll be without today. They'll be without right tackle Jack Conklin today. He dealt with an ankle injury, did not practice all week. They would also be without defensive end Isaiah Thomas right now, who's their backup left defensive end. He dealt with a foot injury. He popped up on the injury report on Thursday and Friday, which did not practice. And Jadeveon Clowney, who actually popped up surprisingly on Friday, not injury related. I'm not sure what that is, but he is ruled out for today's contest right here. So the Steelers got to be very careful today in this matchup. And if you look at it too, I think one of the biggest things I'm been paying attention to, I mean, when you look at this team right here now, I mean, the Steelers' run defense, who's took a while to get into form this season, if you think about it. I mean, for the most part, I mean, the Cleveland Browns did a number uh, on them this season back in September, where they allowed, let's see, 171 yards on the ground right there, and that was behind Jacoby Brissett and Nick Chubb and everybody right there. And in that game too, when you look at like some of the key factors that stood out, I mean, more in particular right there. I mean, the one turnover that was in that game wasn't until late in the game. That was by I think like where the Steelers were trying to do like a lateral and they got fumbled and then ran and then scored in for a touchdown. That was at the end of the game, pretty much at the end of regulation right there. In that game, that was a Thursday night game. That was on Amazon Prime, where Trubisky tried throwing a short pass to Deontay Johnson, which was caught for 8 yards. He tried laterally to Chase Claypool for no gain. Then lateral to Najee Harris, no gain. Najee Harris fumbled. It was recovered by Denzel Ward in the end zone. And that was the end of that game right there. Went from 17 to 23 to 17 to 29. The Steelers would fall. So right now, I mean, I will think this team is going to be a lot more better going into this game too. I mean, the Steelers, I think they'll be a lot more better equipped going into it. Still got to get the run game going. So, real quick before we get back to the Steelers Browns games right now, let's go over like a historical amount of help they had all time as far as clinching playoffs with help. Now, when you look at it, it has happened 6 times out of the last, I mean, like 46 years now, if you think about it, dating back to 1976. They are 6-5 in that regard, according to my knowledge. 1976, they got in with a win, plus they needed the Raiders to beat the Bengals on Monday Night Football, which both happened. The Steelers were able to beat the Oilers, and the Raiders beat the Bengals. Steelers, which on that point won on a 10-game winning streak. They won 9 in a row to make the playoffs and to win the division. And then they were able to get in the playoffs that year, beating the Baltimore Colts. And then they were able to fall, unfortunately, to the then eventual AFC champions, Oakland Raiders. Steelers were trying to three-peat that year. A lot of people still argue, like Franco Harris and Rocky Bleier were not available in that game. However, I will say this. I do feel right now the Raiders that year, it was their time. Unfortunately, as much as anyone wants to hear it, for me, to your chagrin, Raiders were coming back on teams and had so much a lot of adversity. I'm not sure if that would have made that much of a difference. I think it would have been a close game, but I think in the end, the Raiders was still found a way to come back and gone on to the Super Bowl. As much as the Steelers were trying to repeat, I mean, in that year. And remember, the Steelers, don't forget, opening game of that 1976 season, they blew a 2-touchdown lead in the opener twice. And they had to lose that game, basically. And that was in Oakland back in 1976. Then, of course, 1977, they needed a win plus an Oilers win over the Bengals. What happened there? Basically, the Steelers that year, in a very pivotal game, they lost to the Cincinnati Bengals back in Week 13 when it was a 14-game schedule. They lost to the Bengals in Cincinnati 10-17, so they needed to win that game at the Chargers in San Diego at the time, and they needed the Oilers to beat the Bengals. That happened. Steelers got into the playoffs. 1989 was the most craziest of scenarios. Steelers needed to win, and then they needed the Raiders, Colts, Dolphins, and Bengals. So they needed 4 teams to lose. All teams lost. Steelers got into the playoffs. They won a playoff game against the Houston Oilers against Jerry Glanville, who got under Chuck Noll's skin big time, was brewing for at least 3 seasons at that point. They would eventually lose to the Denver Broncos. I believe it was in overtime in the divisional round. Broncos would go on to the AFC Championship right there, but that was the last glimmer of flash that Chuck Noll would have for his head coaching career and his run with the Pittsburgh Steelers before his transition over to Bill Cowher. 1993, another one. They needed a win plus a Jets and either a Raiders or Dolphins loss. Steelers beat the Browns, plus the Dolphins lost to the Patriots, and the Jets lost to Oilers. Steelers get into the playoffs. They will lose to the Kansas City Chiefs in the wild card round of the playoffs. Joe Montana and the Chiefs. Montana Magic, unfortunately, will prevail over the Pittsburgh Steelers in Kansas City in Arrowhead Stadium in that regard right there, along with Marcus Allen, too, who was their running back who left who left the LA Raiders at the time, went to the Kansas City Chiefs. 2015, Steelers needed a win plus a Bills win over the New York Jets. Steelers beat the Browns back in Cleveland on the final game of the season, Week 17. And then the Bills took care of business against New York Jets. Jets. Well, I say going forward is the BILLS, Bills. That happens. Steelers get in the playoffs. They win the opening wild card round, which is a crazy wild card round matchup. As everyone can remember, the Steelers had a 15-point lead against the Bengals in Cincinnati. Ben Roethlisberger had to leave the game and then was able to come back. And then Antonio Brown had a concussion. Wild finish. Steelers would get a game-winning field goal thanks to some brutal penalties by the Cincinnati Bengals. Fontes perfect. Then last year, of course, 2021, Steelers needed a win plus a Colts loss, and then the Raiders and Chargers had to make sure that game did not end in a tie. If they were both tied, they will both got in the playoffs, thus eliminating Pittsburgh Steelers, who lost, by the way, both of those teams that season. So again, just to recap, Steelers, to my record and research, from what I knowledge, where they need to get into the playoffs, where they had to win and have some help, 1976, 1977, 1989, 1993, 2015, and 2021. So they are 6-for-11 in that regard, in that category. So we'll see if this is able to hold true today. We'll find out. Right now, it's still a reasonable long shot. The Steelers today, their playoff scenario help. They'd have to still, of course, beat the Browns. That's would be the first and foremost important thing. Plus, they would need the Miami Dolphins to lose to the New York Jets. They'll need them to lose to the Jets. And plus the Patriots, they'll need a Patriots loss to the Buffalo Bills. The Patriots, their simplest path of getting to the playoffs is just win. They're in. They're currently own the number 7 seed, but the Bills may still have something to play for right now. The Kansas City Chiefs, yesterday, I'm not sure how much that's going to affect the Bills versus Patriots game, but the Kansas City Chiefs, who have won and clinched the first round bye. Now, here's the thing, too. Now, remember, with this whole two of the trans events on Monday night, the impact of the Bills-Bengals game being canceled. For anyone wondering, just to recap right now, the Bengals, who, by the way, as a result of Monday night, they have officially canceled. I mean, they officially canceled the Bills Bengals game. They are not rescheduling that game. They're not going to do it next week. That is no more. So they're going to let that stand as in. No ties. It's just going to be a no contest. So the Bengals do automatically get awarded the division. But however, here's where the screwy part comes in that the Bengals can no longer obtain the AFC's number 1 seed and the first round bye. So right now the Bills, who, by the way, they were trying to clinch a seed, that's out the window right now. They could clinch as high as number 2. But the Bengals, they could finish as a number 2 seed with a win versus the Ravens, plus a Bills loss to the Patriots. Any other scenario, the Bengals will earn the number 3 seed. Okay, so once again, For the Bengals to finish as number 2 seed, they need to beat the Ravens today, plus a Bills loss to the Patriots, and then they'll be the number 3 seed. Now, here's where it gets interesting at right now. Because usually, if you're the winners usually get a home game to host a playoff game in all likely scenarios. Not this time because it's one less game. And then they're also looking at it too. If the Ravens were able to beat the Bengals today, they'd sweep the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati Bengals would still have a better winning percent at 688, while the Ravens would have a 647 win percent. The only problem is right now, since it's one lesser game, it'll be marked out as that the Ravens have swept the Bengals throughout the regular season. So they would have to go into a coin flip to decide who would get like a home field, basically, right now. And that's the only part that gets a little screwy right now. In the event the Ravens win the coin toss and host the Bengals, Cincinnati would still be the number 3 seed, and the Ravens the number 6 seed. So that would be crazy in itself. A lower seed hosting a higher seed, dual coin toss because it's one lesser game, but the fact they would go on to sweep the Bengals if that holds true right now. But for the rest of the playoffs right now, I mean, you're pretty much looking at right now if either the Bills, Chiefs, or Bengals right now. Because right now, here's the thing too. Even though the Kansas City Chiefs have clinched the number 1 seed and the first round bye, I mean, the Buffalo Bills could still win, and then they could still win a long way to the playoffs as Kansas City Chiefs, and the Bills and Chiefs will more likely be at a neutral site. And then, but also too, right now, that's where we're looking at. So it's me at a neutral site. Indianapolis, Lucas Oil Stadium has been one of the noticeable sites they've been looking at. According to Tom Pelissero, Detroit Lions Ford Field will be out of the question right now because they still got a chance to get in for the wild card. And of course, a wild card, they cannot host a home playoff game. They're trying to beat the Packers today. They need to have the Seattle Seahawks on top of that to clinch the playoffs. The Green Bay Packers just need a win, and they are in right now. So they plan on ripping out the turf, and that's going to take at least a couple of weeks or months to get that in order. So that's one of the reasons why Detroit would be out of the question. Or it'll be at a stadium where potentially it could be an outdoor stadium with weather. But I would think ideally it'll be like indoor at this point. I like Lucas Oil Stadium a lot. That's a fair, reasonable neutral site, especially for an AFC title game for anything to come. So here we go. Let's go ahead and finish this thing out right now. 2022, hopefully we can finish out as a miraculous season. Let's go into keys for the game for today's matchup regarding the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns. I will definitely say this. This is definitely going to be a nail biter if you ask me. But I'm going to say key number one right now. It starts with like stopping and controlling the run. I remember, like I said, the Pittsburgh Steelers this year, I mean, when they lost that game to the Cleveland Browns in Cleveland on Thursday night on Amazon Prime, I mean, think about it. That ground, the amount of yards they gave up on the ground was the second most this year. And a lot of their yards on the run, they have surrendered. Interestingly enough, at least 3 out of the top 5 amount of yards rushing came from within their division. The Baltimore Ravens have the most ran on the Steelers, with the exception, of course, last week on Sunday Night Football. I mean, they did a good job defending that this time around. I mean, last Sunday night, of course, they didn't have Lamar Jackson. I mean, they had in that game for the Baltimore Ravens, Tyler Huntley, but still, right there, I mean, a much better adjustment. He had 215 yards in that game. I mean, last week for the Baltimore Ravens, they cut that down 85 yards less, 120 yards, and the Steelers were able to outgain them on the ground by 78 more yards, 198 yards on the ground. And last time the Steelers versus the Browns, they had 65 yards on the ground as opposed to the Cleveland Browns 215. So that's be a key right there. Definitely right there. They'll need to get Chubby and or they'll need to slip down Nick Chubb. Excuse me, no pun intended. I apologize, Nick Chubb, and you and your teammates and family watching this. My apologies. Just having a little rib here, but seriously. But that's what they're going to have to do. Key number one. Key number two for the Pittsburgh Steelers in today's contest right now, it's going to have to be right now setting the tempo right now, if you ask me. I mean, one of the biggest things, too, that they are doing right now, I mean, is like their third down conversion right now. I mean, right now, I mean, they're doing good right now. They're seventh in the league, but they need to do a better job attacking the red zone. Not third down conversions, excuse me. So attacking the red zone. They are currently 20th in that regard. They converted 25 out of 48 red zone attempts for about 52%. Pretty decent, pretty solid. You got to make sure you keep that up to snuff right there. So that's going to be a main thing right there. And how you're going to do that, you're going to have to do that with some guys. I would say definitely involve like George Pickens and Pat Fryermuth. Maybe use Deontay Johnson as a decoy right now. Because as you look at, I mean, George Pickens, who is has got the third most reception yards on the year. He's got 729 yards, but still Deontay Johnson, who has been targeted the most, bowls everyone else. He's got 137 targets. He's caught 84 of them. Not a real good clutch guy when it comes to hanging on the ball, but that's me very key right there. So I try to use Deontay Johnson as a decoy. If anything, try and see if they could like hook up if they could hook up with Pat Fryermuth and George Pickens right there. That will be another key right there. And then last but not least, key number three. I'm only going to do three keys for today's game. It's going to be the Steelers' offensive line in this game, this contest right now. I'll tell you what, the one guy I'm going to be looking at today is Dan Moore going up against the Cleveland Browns pass rush right now. When you look at the Cleveland Browns right now, I mean, for this season, I mean, you still got to contend with a guy like Myles Garrett, by the way, who's their leading sacker with 15, by the way, sacks for the year. Still a pretty legit defensive player of the year candidate. He plays on the left side, so he'd be more or less matched up with Steelers right tackle Chukwuma Okorafor. So, excuse me. But you can also add Dan in there, but I'd say more so Chooks in that regard. He's going to have to help up, but try and protect Kenny Pickett on his feet because if you think about it too, when you look at like quarterbacks, I mean, who are doing trying to do what they can. I mean, when it comes to throwing under pressure, I mean, for this year, I mean, Kenny Pickett has not been, that savvy, and I think that's where a lot of times he'll get a little overwhelmed at times, and he's about like a bottom five in that regard as far as like throwing under pressure. So that's gonna be it for this edition here of the Steelers versus Browns pregame show. Let's see if they can pick up this win. But other than that, man, just want to just continue. Please, everybody, let's continue to unite. Continue to pray for Damar Hamlin and his family, loved ones, friends, and teammates. Anybody that continues to put their butts on the line for this game of football. Once again, you guys can follow me on social media on Twitter at MansSteelCGR and on Instagram at MansSteelNation. Let's see if the Steelers can be 7 for 12, clinching a playoff spot with help. For Charles Bradge Ritchie and the Man Steel podcast, as always, leave it. Don't be trolling, be rolling. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. I don't. Thank you for watching the Mass Steel podcast with your host, Charles Bradge Ritchie, here on YouTube. Please make sure to hit that subscribe button. And for all the latest Mass Steel podcast episodes, feel free to download them on Mixcloud Anchor.fm, and SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcasts.